Action. So today we're doing some more completing the square. Yesterday, the ones we were completing the square with had a lead coefficient of 1, which makes them real, usually neater. But we're going to mess with that a little bit today. Our first example has a lead coefficient of 2. Luckily in this one will come out nice and clean too, because as you notice, every coefficient is divisible by 2, right? So when you're completing the square, your first step is to get your lead coefficient down to 1, which means you have to divide by whatever your current lead coefficient is, which in this case is 2. The nice thing is, when I divide this equation by 2, everything comes out as integers. What do I get on the left-hand side when I divide by 2? She said in a whisper. Minus 4. So the first step in completing the square will be to get our lead coefficient, the coefficient of x squared, down to 1. So we divide by whatever the current lead coefficient is. Remember that the next step is to move the constant term, in this case the minus 4, over to the other side.
Plus 4.
So we add 4 to both sides. Now we need to fill in that missing piece. So what goes in the blank there? Maria? Okay, so we take our 10, our b, divide by 2, and square. We get 5 squared, which is 25. And since we added a 25 on the left-hand side, we have to add a 25 on the right-hand side. So far, so good? So what do we get when we factor the left-hand side? Esme.
29. Wait,
I asked the left-hand side.
X plus 5 squared.
There you go. And on the right-hand side, we get 29. What's my next step in solving? Tyler. The little weird looking thing?
Yeah? Crap.
Take the square root of both sides. No, crap is not the name of it. We take the square root of both sides. It cancels the square on the left. And on the right, we have plus or minus square root of 29. Remember, there's 2. How do we get x by itself?
You just subtract 5 from both sides.
Subtract 5 from both sides. Gives us a negative 5 plus radical 29. And negative 5 minus radical 29. What does that give us for our approximate answers, rounded to 2 decimal places? 0.39 and negative 10.39. Make sense? So far, so good? Okay, let's look at a word problem. You decide to use chalkboard paint to create a chalkboard on a door. You want the chalkboard to have a uniform border as shown. You have enough chalkboard paint to cover 6 square feet. Find the width of the border to the nearest inch. So here we have a picture of our door. And we're painting the center section there with chalkboard paint. And so we need to figure out what we need to leave our width if we can cover 6 square feet. So first of all, let's find what the area of the chalkboard section would be, because that's what we know. We know the area of our that we can cover is 6 feet, or 6 feet squared. So let's find an expression that represents that area. So what is the width of that chalkboard? Nope, 3 feet is the width of the whole door.
X minus 3 feet minus X.
Okay, it would be 3 feet minus X, except for I've got an X here, and I've got an X here.
2X.
So I need to take 3 and subtract 2X, because I got an X on both sides. Generally undesirable to have happen. You don't want an x on both sides. You will be in imminent danger of being hit, probably. Different type of x. It's okay.
I'll figure it out.
All right. What about the height of the chalkboard?
7 feet.
7 minus the 2x, because you got an x on top and an x on bottom there. All right, so we've got to take the 2 x's off. So that will be the area of my chalkboard, and we said that we can cover 6 square feet. So we want to make sure that this is 6 square feet and that the other measurements are in feet. This is in feet because we have 7 feet labeled here, and the x is in feet. This is in feet because we have 3 feet labeled here, and the x is in feet. So far, so good? So now we're going to solve by completing the square, but the first thing we need to do is FOIL out the left-hand side. Yeah, because we got to multiply it out before we can complete the square. So what do we get when we multiply the firsts? And the outsides. And the insides. And the lasts. Okay, so let's rearrange this a little bit. We want to add the like terms. We want to put them in order. And we want to move that 21 to the other side. Because remember, we want the constant terms on the other side. So that's going to give us 4x squared minus 20x equals negative 15. So far, so good? Now what do I got to do?
I think the fine was going to be like this.
Nope.
15 by 4.
Got to divide the whole equation by 4. Remember, I got to get rid of my lead coefficient there. That's got to be 1, and right now it's 4, so we're going to divide the whole equation by 4. It gives us x squared minus 5x, and on the right-hand side, negative 15 over 4. Oh yeah, it's going to get ugly. It's alright, we can handle fractions.
It's going to look like you, Tyler.
Now it's immortalized on YouTube. You just called yourself ugly.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's figure out what's going to go in our missing space here. What do we do?
Divide 5 by 2. So negative 5 by 2 squared.
So negative 5 divided by 2 squared gives us... No, give me a fraction. We're dealing with fractions here. 25 over 4. So what do we get when we factor the left-hand side? We know it always starts with x. What goes next?
X plus 5 minus 2.
Minus 5 over 2.
Squared.
Remember, it's always this. It's always b over 2. Okay? What do we get when we add on the right-hand side? What does 10 over 4 reduce to?
5.
You know what, though? We're going to have to take the square root, right?
5.
So let's leave it as 10 over 4. Let's not reduce it, because when we take the square root, it'll be a little bit neater.
Oh,
All right, let's take this on to the next page. So we said we take the square root of both sides. That gives us x minus 5 over 2 on the left. Now when we take the square root of 10 over 4, taking the square root of a fraction, you take the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. That's simple. So we had square root of 10 over 2. Everybody okay with that? It's just like when you square a fraction, you square the top, you square the bottom. When you square root a fraction, you square root the top, square root the bottom. Then what do we do? Add 5 over 2 to both sides. So I got x equals 5 over 2 plus radical 10 over 2. It was, but remember, square root of the top over square root of the bottom. What's the square root of 4? Okay. And we have 5 over 2 minus radical 10 over 2. So we plug those into our calculator. What do we get?
4.74.
No. If it helps, these already have common denominators, so you can do 5 plus radical 10 in parentheses and then divide by 2. Or you can do 5 minus radical 10 in parentheses and divide by 2. Not 6.58 either.
Like 4 points.
Nope, it's supposed to be 5 over 2.
5 what?
5 over 2. You got what?
Well, what I did is I got it. Oh. 4.08.
10. And then there you go.
4.08. And I got 4.08.
4.08. Now, what you do is hit last entry, hit second enter. And that brings up what you put in. Just change that plus to minus.
Oh.
What do you get for the other one?
Negative.
Shouldn't it be a negative?
Oh, 0.92.
0.92.
I don't know how I got a negative.
Now, this x is in feet, right? Because you've got yours backwards. It should be 5 over 2 minus. These are in feet, right? Now, one of these is not going to work. Anybody tell me what it is? Yeah?
0.92.
Nope.
It's 1.08.
Well, it must be. That's the only other option. And why?
Because okay, so if the width of the bottom of the door is 3 feet, then we already know that 4.0 is too much.
That's right. If the width is 3 feet and we make x 4 feet, that's wider than the door. So we can't have a border on the door that's wider than the door. Okay? That doesn't make sense. So we got to use the 0.92 for the width of our border. Okay? So the width of our border is going to be 0.92 feet. Now look carefully at the question. What is it asking for? To the nearest inch. We need to convert to inches. How do we convert it to inches?
Times by 12.
Multiply by 12. What do we get? 11.04, and it says nearest inch.
11 inches.
11 inches.
That'd be cool having a chalkboard door.
That'd be great.
Okay, this is on YouTube. So
Cool story. All right, let's try one on your own. Oh no, I think you can handle it. You're big boys and girls. Well, you're normal sized boys and girls. 3g squared minus 24g plus 27 equals 0. So take a few minutes, work that out, and then we'll go through it together. Okay, so what was our first step? Divide by 3. So we have g squared minus 8g plus 9. See? Then what? Subtract 9 for both sides. Puts us there. And we need to fill in that blank. What do we put in that blank, Isaiah?
Negative 8 over 2 squared.
Which is
Negative 16.
positive 16. Remember, when you square it, it becomes positive. Okay? So the left-hand side, what does it factor into?
No, right hand side. It factors into g plus 4 squared. G minus 4 squared. I need to chill out and remember this.
And the right-hand side adds up to 7. All right, so remember, we're taking the negative 8 divided by 2, square it, we get 16. So we add the 16 to both sides. And we get g minus 4 squared equals 7. Then what do we do?
Transfer the radical sign over to this.
You mean just take the square root of both sides. There's no radical sign to transfer. Okay, so we're going to take the square root of both sides.
I'm done talking for the
Okay.
video.
That cancels out the square on the left. Gives us g minus 4. Gives us plus or minus radical 7 on the right. All right, so then we add 4 to both sides. Right? Gives us 4 plus radical 7 and 4 minus radical 7. And what is 4 plus radical 7? 6.65. And what's 4 minus radical 7? 1.35. Make sense? Any questions? All right.